right, good morning. We're back another Saturday on our Black Media Network with the Watchdogs, and we are also celebrating this weekend the homecoming of Savannah State University. So happy homecoming to the Savannah State University alumni and Tiger family. This morning we have Patti Hewitt, who is no stranger to our network or this podcast. We have Patti Hewitt, who's running for Congress. So good morning,
Hey, good
afternoon.
morning. Yeah, happy Friday.
I'm telling you, it's an interesting day. So, uh, Patty, we know you've been on here before, so we won't, rehash to who are you and all of this stuff. But let's have a little fun this morning. We do want
Sure.
you to tell us, how you got here. It's no secret that you're running for Congress in the first congressional district. But let's
Right.
begin with something that's going to be a little fun and light. Tell us how you got here, but also add in there, how tell us a little bit about your hobbies. I know you have grandchildren. Let's kind of just learn who Patty is for a moment.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on the show. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a very interesting journey to get to this run
Mm,
because it isn't something that was on my radar politically when I first got deeply involved in politics in this area. I
mm,
just work behind the scenes like a lot of people, like hundreds of people work behind the scenes. We volunteer on committees. We do community activist work. We participate in
mm,
protests. I certainly, one of the very first things I did when I got to this area, Dr. Bryan, is I got on a bus at 2 o'clock in the morning with a couple of hundred other women, and we went to Washington to protest Trump's first inauguration. So, we do a lot of things behind the scenes and work that I'm really proud of. But that work really was part of the education I needed that got me to this race, because what it really showed me is how neglected this district really was, how neglected the people of this district really were, and how deeply the needs go in this district. That was very important to me to address that. And when I was talked to, when folks came to me and said, you might want to really consider this run, I looked around very carefully. First of all, to determine, could I win this race? Is this race
mm,
winnable? Do we have the numbers in this district to actually win this race? It's number one. And number two, are the people ready to do the work to flip the seat? Because the
mm,
first time you flip a seat like this, it is a lot of extra hard work to get there, right? We're going against an incumbent. It's been in the race, been in politics for a long time, and has held that seat for a long time. So, how do we break through? So I spent months talking to people, analyzing data, and figuring out whether this was a winnable race. And the answer to me was yes, we can win this race. Not only can we win this race, but we should win this race. So,
mm,
really, what drives me, what in my heart, is the people of this district and making sure that the prosperity that we're seeing in this district, the increase in business, the opportunities that are being brought here, which are good, we want all of those, but that we see more of those benefits. In fact, I'd like to see the majority of those benefits be distributed out to our population, be distributed out to our families, to raise our families up so that they can be prosperous and they can pass that prosperity on to their children. Very important, so that we begin to really build generational wealth and generational stability. So those are the things that really drove me and got me to this. The final piece is the people of this district that are supporting me. My supporters are fantastic. They are, and this organization, Julius's organization, his Black Media Network, has really gotten behind me. I am very, very grateful for that. Many organizations like this around the district have gotten behind me because they know I am speaking the language of hope and prosperity. And I really greatly appreciate that, because that's the work that's going to be done. So this is what motivates me politically. This is what moves me forward. And once again, I'll say it again, I am very confident we're going to win this race.
And and I agree with you 100%. I think you're doing a lot of good work. You have a phenomenal team, and we had Julius Hall just join us. But let me go to this question before I get Julius involved. You said something very important when you started. And I think it's an important phrase I keep hearing people say. And there are two iterations to that. One is I'm not political, and the other one is, I don't understand politics, or I'm not involved with politics, but we have to be. And I want you to speak to that, because a lot of people will not understand the process or not want to be in politics, and I'm not political and use that language, but you have to be. You have to think about women's rights. You have to think about your daily budget. You have to think about food apartheid. You've got to think about the next door neighbor who can't afford to live. So we've all got to be involved. And what sparked your interest at what age, right? Did you become political, or did you understand, what, this thing impacts everything around me?
Yeah, let's talk about for a second, and I will share some of my beginnings with you. I think that's a great question. I'm happy to do that. But I'd like to really draw a finer line, and not so much talk about politics as talk about how politics is a stepping stone into policy and governance.
Mm,
Politics does not lead, good politics does not lead to power, it leads to governance, it leads to policy. Those are the connections we are trying so hard to make with our voters, especially our young people or people who feel like they've been disenfranchised, our immigrant populations, our certain tranches of women, our Black and brown populations who feel like they have been left out. What they feel being left out of is a power structure, and they connect power to politics. I'd like to connect politics to policy,
mm.
politics to governance. So that's, I think, is really important. I'm going to come back to that. But let me tell you where I started, and this is a true story. When I entered high school, girls were not allowed to wear pants to school. We had to wear dresses or skirts. That was our requirement. And I organized a strike amongst
Wow.
as many girls as I could in my freshman class and beyond. And we marched around the school with posters, and we convinced the administration to change that policy. We said, we are not going to go back to school until girls can wear pants. And so that is really was my first work of activism. But I grew up in that era, that era, the anti-war era of the late 60s and early 70s. And I was very much a part of that movement. I always believed that we needed to present with vigor our opinions about peace, our opinions about policy and governance. And I've always felt strongly about that. And I've always advocated for that my entire life. And I haven't stopped now. I come from the working class. I come from the middle class of America. I understand that journey. And I want to make sure that we're rebuilding that middle class. I was a product of the middle class. And I want to make sure that we're rebuilding that. But so my activism roots go back pretty far. So that's an example of politics. We were politicking to wear pants, but it resulted in policy. It didn't result in power. It's resulted in policy. But we used our unity to get there. So that's the pathway. We have to determine that we are going to unite as a party, as a, in my case, as a Democratic Party, and then use that unity as our strength and our power to get to our policy. And I think that's a very important difference, because when you listen to my opponent and the leader of my opponent's party, if you listen to their rhetoric, it's all about power. It's about using the military to punish people. It's about rounding people up and putting them in concentration camps and exiting them out of the country. It's all of these negative actions against our populations. And that is the use of power as a bludgeon and as a tool, not as policy. There is no policy there. That is simply raw power. So these are the things I feel very strongly at this stage, coming from the anti-war period, when our citizens were stuck with a war that most of us did not want, and our young people were being killed in places that we did not want them to be. And now to be here to be dealing with similar situations where we're dealing with a power structure that has to be broken down for the good of the people. We need to break this power structure down for the good of the people and remind ourselves that the American government is about people's self-governance. I feel very strongly about that.
Well, the only problem with uh, the vision that we have, because we have the same vision, is that we have to get the people behind making sure that this change occurs. And I'm a realist. I know that this race is too close all over the country and and I'm talking about the presidential race, which trickles down to the House and the Senate and the local races also. And I see that as a problem. And we are not on the same page as a organization. We're not on the same page as a group of people who have a vision for change. We're not. You got some Democrats supporting Republicans. I got a call the other day where somebody was in church and an old person said they voted for the Republican DA candidate because the mayor supported it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this old person didn't even know that Shalana Cook Jones was a Democrat. They were shocked and said that they thought the other guy was the Democrat because the mayor was supporting it. See where people get misled? We're not on the same page. We have too many people going outside of what we need to do. And I say all this to get to your point, was that these races could be shut down. We could win all of them if the churches would forget about a 501(c)(3). They're derelict in their duties as to what their function is for the people in their congregation. They think that all they're supposed to do is build a wing on the church. All they're supposed to do is to help the pastor get a new Cadillac. When they should be, there's no reason why every pastor, we got 900 churches here. 900 in the metropolitan Chatham County area. Savannah, 900 churches. Why all these pastors aren't saying for the good of the people? That everybody in their congregation should have been filling the civic center or the arena. Everybody in their congregation should be early voting. You got to forget that about a tax break. See, it's all about money when you're not doing the service of God. And that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be bringing people and uplifting the congregation. And I say that again to say that there's no unity. We have to get the people to understand that is important. If we're going to survive, if we're going to get by, and not be people that we're marginalizing and the underserved communities that we're forgetting about, then those people have to vote. We have to get everybody out to vote. And don't it scare you, Patti, to some degree that this race is this close? What does that say about America? I wish that everybody that's voting, you're going to win Chatham County. I mean, you're going to win Savannah, and you probably win Chatham County. We got to get those people outside to understand how important it is also. Because you got these rules counties and everything that don't vote the way they're supposed to vote and don't go out and vote because they think that their vote don't matter. We have to be able to tell these people how important it is for them to vote because they got to vote.
I have, as you know, the the majority of my time has been spent outside of our blue counties. That includes Chatham and Liberty counties. And I've spent a tremendous amount of time in the rural counties, building relationships with their leaders, their civic leaders, their faith leaders, their influencers, talking to the people in small groups, letting them get to know me, going back again and again. Yesterday, I spent all day in Baxley working with a group there to deliver supplies and food to people. There are still people without power in our district. I mean, there are still 100 people in Baxley. As a woman drove up the other day, they told me the story. Listen to this. This woman drives up in an old car. She has a child with her. She asked for 2 meals from them. And something about the way that she was triggered something for one of the people there. And they started just chatting with her. Well, it turned out she has 10 children, this woman, and she's living in her car because they're all living somehow in this car. It's the only shelter they have. I don't know how that's working, because they haven't had power since the storm. And she just broke down and was crying. And they made sure that she had everything she needed plus more, but importantly, let her know that there were people here that cared about her and her struggle. They told me that over 2,500 people in Appling County have mental health problems or have tried to commit suicide because they are so downtrodden by what happened in the storm and their inability to recover. It isn't just not having power, but even when their power came back on, their houses have mold in them. Some of them have been destroyed. They're falling apart. You know, these are really struggling. It's people that are really struggling. And these are the people that I've built relationships with, because these are the people, first of all, I know that need the most help, but also these are the voters that we need to flip the seat. It's the unity part of it that we need to flip the seat. And it's those votes that are outside of Chatham County.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we're articulating to our voters how to vote in their best interest and why it's important to vote in our best interest. That's my responsibility as a candidate, to plead my case and to make sure that my voters or the people that are listening to me understand my platform and where I stand. And that means you've got to get out in the community. And I have been doing that for the last year and a half. I have been out there every day, out in the community. And that's what it takes to run for office.
Yeah.
You know, people think running for office these days, Julius, is all about money and how much money you're able to get your donors to give you. Well, anyone can see that I'm an underfunded campaign. I mean, that's public knowledge. According to politicos, my campaign is underfunded. I think according to a winning candidate, my campaign is overfunded. I think as far as enthusiasm for me among my supporters, especially out in the rural counties, these are the people that are really backing me and coming behind me. These people don't have any money. I can't tell you how many times I've been in an event and someone has come up to me quietly and pressed a couple of dollars into my hand. And that is the most moving thing every time that happens. And it happens frequently. That is the most moving thing to me, because I'm reminded of the widow giving her last 2 pence.
Yes.
Giving her last 2 pence. These are people that are so generous. In Baxley, the people that are working at this charity have been doing this for weeks. I just spent one full day. But they've been doing this day after day after day after day. And it's a tremendous amount of work. I mean, it's a lot of physical work, but they will not give up until that last person is taken care of. These are the kind of policies. This is what the people are yearning for. They're yearning for that kind of leadership. This is what I believe they really want. So we need to pull aside the curtains of the only way you can be a winning candidate is if you raise X amount of money. I'm going to say no. The way that you're a winning candidate is to put the needs of your whatever your constituency is first. Because when they win, I win. But I'm a servant leader, Julius. You know, that's how I come at this. I come at this that if the people that I am leading are doing well, I am doing well. That's a reflection on me. I
Yeah.
want my leadership to be reflected in the faces of the people that I serve.
Yeah. And
And
it's all
I
about
will
putting
not,
that work in. It's all
it's
you're
all about
putting the
putting
work
that work in. It's a lot of hard work, but that's
in. Yeah.
up to the
Yeah.
candidate to make their case and make sure that the people that they are asking to vote know who they are, know what they stand for, that they're not afraid to get their hands dirty in the race, to really get in with the people. I've spoken at a lot of small churches, little tiny churches, little small churches all over, pleading my case, introducing myself, letting them get to know me, worshiping with them, eating with them, spending the afternoon with them so they can get to know me, because I know it's difficult for them. I
Yeah.
understand they're looking at me as a white woman and saying, why should we trust you? Well, the only way they're going to even begin to trust me is to get to know me. But that's up to the candidate. So that's my only comment about that. That's on the candidate. And I know that's my job. That's a job I take
Oh yeah,
responsibility for.
you've been putting the work in, and everybody see you everywhere. My problem is that everybody that everybody needs to be behind you in a more visible way. I think everybody, because it's about unseating Buddy Carter. He has no agenda for us. He's doing nothing for us. His only agenda is whatever Trump wants. And
Right.
if the people can't see that, then that's a problem. We have to do better as a as a community. We have to get you in front, and that's why I've been trying so hard with what I do. I mean, all of us could do a whole lot more, but it takes a team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody should be behind you, making sure that everybody knows to vote for you, and
Yes.
that's just
So,
the problem.
what I'll also say to that, I agree with you about that, Julius. In the next couple of days, there will be advertising and social media up around my endorsements, my local endorsements, and that will include the mayor, Edna Jackson, Al Williams, Ann Allen Westbrook, and others that are supporting me and are coming out publicly to support me. I'm doing an event tomorrow in Brunswick with Senator Ossoff, who has endorsed me, and he's rallying with me tomorrow in Brunswick. So we're finishing strong. We are finishing strong.
Yeah,
To your point, because
I hear
you're
you.
exactly right, Julius. You need that visibility from your local leaders. You need that, and that is coming on now. So we'll be seeing that soon.
Well,
Yes, of course, I wish it had been earlier than later. But
right.
listen, we are finishing strong. We've got real people behind me, and that is what it's going to take to flip this seat. You know, the other thing about Buddy Carter that I've learned in all of my travels around the district is, in the 10 years that he has been in office, first of all, it's recognized by many people, not just Democrats, but many people, of how ineffective as a legislator he is, how narrow his scope is. You know, his legislation is really all about, like you said, following along with whatever Trump tells him to do, but then, protecting pharmaceutical companies. Most of his legislation is around that, which keeps prices up for people. But also, it's recognized that he is, I guess a good way to put it is, a lame duck representative. He's now raising money for his next race. He now has his eyes on the next race. And I want to remind people of what it's like, because everyone has had this experience of working with someone whose eyes are on their next job, not on what they're doing now, not on the needs of whatever they're responsible for now, but on their next job, and how difficult it is to work and how ineffective that person is, because they're not actually doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. And many people recognize that about him.
Well, it
So
should
I
have
think
been.
that, again, I'm trying to offer an alternative to people.
Well, you offer a great alternative. The thing is that it should have been more pressure for him to debate you. it should have been more pressure because your view is for the people. His view is for only the rich and those corporations, and people need to see that. And I'm saying that there has to be more emphasis put on from the big dogs like Warnock and Ossoff and all that, because should you win, and that's what we're praying, then the game changes. Then they calling you every day. Then they're kissing your butt every day. You see what I'm saying? Then they're asking you for stuff every day. The only
person I want to hug from are the people of this district. Those are the people I want to hug from.
Yeah.
That's the people I want to hug from. And let me tell you, as you've heard me say a million times before, and I'll keep saying it, this seat is the key to flipping the power structure in this district and to begin to really rebuild the Democratic power base. Democrats, and this is something that isn't as clear in Chatham County because Democrats are in the majority and they're accustomed to that environment. But that's not the way it is outside of, as we know. Right. And so when you go into these other areas, it's just presumed and it's assumed that Democrats are going to lose. And so, therefore, we don't get the quality of candidates that we want to run. We don't have a bench, right? We don't have a bench here to pull from where we're we're getting people onto boards, we're getting people into city council and county government. There's a few here and there, but not many. And so we need that bench. So, for example, we've got at least a great candidate for House Seat 180, DeFoncio Daniels, who's running in primarily Camden, a little Glen and Jekyll. That's State District 180. An excellent candidate, a veteran, a Marine, a law enforcement officer, a lot of experience, very committed to his community, very knowledgeable about his community. That's the kind of quality candidate we want to put forward. And let me say that I am very proud of all the Democrats that come forward. Don't misunderstand me. But by flipping this seat, we're going to change that power dynamic. We're going to attract better candidates, higher quality candidates, and we'll begin to show young people in particular that Democrats are winners.
That's it. We have a quick message. We're going to step away and then we'll come back, Patti. I would love to hear, what you're doing when we come back after this message, what you're doing in counties that are in rural, because as you know, and I know, you're going to have to flip 2 of the reds to even really compete. But I think you can do that. Right. But I would love to hear more when we come back.
I'm Patti Hewitt, and I'm worried about our future.
Last one.
I think about my grandkids and the belief that they deserve every opportunity. And what you deserve, what coastal Georgia deserves, is someone who cares more about their community than about corporate profits and big pharma.
I'll see you later.
All right, thank you. Small business owners and hardworking Georgians are the heart of our community.
Have a good day.
Not CEOs, not lobbyists, not shareholders, but who's taking care of them? It's time to ask yourself, what do you want from your government? This is our year to stand up against what we know is wrong. No more DC politicians invading our home life. No more racism that kills dreams and spreads violence. And no more corporate greed at the expense of workers' rights and our environment.
So what would be the most meaningful help to you?
I've spent the last 8 years working behind the scenes, mobilizing our communities for positive change. And while that is really important work, I can't stand by and allow the same tired politicians to run this country, the same ones who've neglected the real needs of Georgians. I'm ready to take our seat in Congress so I can fight for you and your families.
I vote for you.
Thank you, my darling. I love you. This isn't about party lines. This is about voting for a better future for more Georgians. Enough is enough.
Need your garments cleaned with care and with a professional touch? Then bring them to One Price Cleaners in Garden City at the Old Farmers Market on Highway 80. Service you can count on.
right, Patty, we're back. Are you still with us there?
Yeah, she's
Yep, I
There
am
you
still
are.
here.
There you are. So, Patty, we before break we talked about the rural areas. You know, how you doing there? What's your pathway? And I know one of my favorite counties is Ware County because we got a young brother down there, Evans Primus, who's done a tremendous job down in that area. But what are you doing in the rural areas? What's making you get that visibility?
You know, in the rural areas, I really started with reaching out to a combination of elected officials, like, for example, the mayor of Waycross,
Mm,
um, Dr. James, Michelangelo James, Dr. James there. I've met with him a couple of times. Their faith leaders, so their individual pastors, as well as their pastor groups and networks. And just their influencers, civic activists, and folks that might have a nonprofit or they have worked in civic activism. So that was my first stop, was to meet those people, let them get to know me a little bit, talk about my vision for the district, understand also about what problems are they experiencing, what issues do they have, because one of the things I intend to do when I'm elected is I intend to create citizen councils. I want to have councils of citizens that represent certain areas or constituencies that can be advisors to me, and I can also share at a deeper level information with them and get their feedback on things that are happening in Washington and around here. So that's a very important part of my plan after I get elected. I know that the representative's office will have groups that will help people with veterans issues or Social Security issues. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real citizen councils where I want to open up our legislature in Washington to let the people be lobbyists. This is my vision of people as lobbyists, so that we don't have just the voice of big business or people with big money. Again, comes back to money, people with big money, but that these are the people that their constituencies are the people that have been pressing a few dollars into my hand and have been fueling my game. And so that's the way that I've been approaching these areas. And as I said before, I've been making sure that I am going to their churches. I am worshiping with them. I'm having fellowship afterwards. Yesterday, I spent all day long in Baxley handing out supplies and loading up supplies and things like that, just working side by side. It wasn't a photo opportunity. It wasn't a fly-in to say, hey, I'm here, let's take some pictures, and now I'm going to go on to the next thing. It's actually working with them, chatting with them, getting to know them, talking about our grandkids, and getting to know each other as people, because this is the way I believe I can build trust in groups that don't feel comfortable trusting politicians. So that is how I've gone into these red areas. The other thing I've done is I've reached out to Republican groups and I've spoken in front of Republican groups and given them my vision of what I feel is a viable economic path forward, shared with them my experience as a business executive in financial services and what that taught me about economics, about corporate life, big corporate life in America, and how corporations and financial institutions and regulators work. I know a great deal about that. So I want to bring my professional experience and merge it with my experience working in the community and my love of the community. So really, it is persistence, Dr. Bryant. It's going back again and again and again and again. So that when I walk in a room, when I walked into the room in Baxley yesterday, everybody said, hi, Patty. Everybody gave me a hug. Everybody was happy to see me. We caught up. I feel like that is where I want to be, because as soon as I walked in the room, they knew who I was and why I was there, and that I was there to help them. And that was beautiful. So that's been the pathway for me. That's been the strategy for me working.
Gotcha.
Okay. Great, Robert.
Okay. All right. Let me keep on going then. So, Patty, one of the things that we've talked about, and I agree with Julius, I wish Buddy Carter wouldn't be such a coward. I'll use the bad language for you. I love being the hype man. But I wish he would stop being a coward and stop hiding behind, like you said, this legislation. What bothers me with the average voter, and I'm going to call Buddy Carter out right now, is that he gets to peddle opioids. and then charge people for overdosing on opioids. But yet we have African American men going to prison for illegal drugs. And so, it bothers me that Buddy gets to pass out drugs, get away with it, run for Congress, protect him and his buddies to make more money. How do we combat that? Where do we get off target? You said this earlier when you met the young lady. How do we get back and out of the Reagan foolishness of trickle down and start trickling down care and compassion for the average American?
Well, I think what we need to do is reorient. I think it starts with economics, because I think we need to reorient our economic attention to our middle classes and to our working classes and our working poor, and start making investments in services that allow them to go to work and allow them to be prosperous. And let me give you some examples of that, because I think this is where we have to start. We have to provide, when I was growing up, the middle class had dignity. We had, my father was a salesman. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. Very typical arrangement for that period for someone like me, right? Mm-hmm. That was the arrangement. But we had dignity. We weren't wealthy. We didn't live an amazing life, but we had dignity, and our work had dignity. The best jobs to have, the very best paying job when I was growing up in New York and Queens, you know what it was? I bet you'll never guess what the best paying job, the job everybody wanted.
What's that?
It was sanitation workers. The guys that picked up garbage were union. They made the best money. They had the best benefits. Everybody wanted those jobs. Those jobs had dignity. We have continued to look at our workers. Most large corporations look at our workers as a drag on profits. How can we reduce the cost of having workers? I know this for a fact. This is the way big corporations work, because it's usually 70 or 75% of their overhead are workers. So they want to reduce that cost. But what it means is that they provide them with less and less and less benefits and less opportunities for dignity. These are the kinds of things that are created because we don't have competition in our workplaces. We have created an oligarchy in many of our markets. We've done it in food services. We've done it in food packing. We've done it in fuel, where we have very, very large corporations that own a majority of their markets. And that means nobody else has any power leverage, including workers. So when I talk about economics, I talk about rebalancing our economics so that our working class has a fair shake at it. So that means we need to create an environment where workers' rights matter and that workers' rights are upheld, that if workers want to collectively bargain, they can collectively bargain. If they want to join a union, they can join a union, and that we prevent corporations from shifting large swaths of their employment from full-time to part-time in order to quit paying jobs. We're seeing, even in our union strikes, the big topics in our union strikes, I'll use two as an example. The Hollywood writers' strike, the big point of contention in that strike was artificial intelligence and the impact of artificial intelligence on their livelihoods and their copyrights and their intellectual work. Well, that's technology. Then we saw that our dock workers are longshoremen with the same problem, automation. Are you going to automate me out of a job? What is going to prevent you from automating me out of a job? And I'm not anti-technology or anti-automation, don't get me wrong. But we have to balance all of that with our workers' needs.
Right.
So I believe in giving people dignity. So, for example, I think one of the most impactful things we could do in this district is sliding scale daycare. Sliding scale daycare. In many of our counties in this district, daycare is an exponentially impossible mountain for people to climb. They cannot go to work because they can't afford daycare. So that's a fundamental barrier and a wall that's put up. So that prevents, and especially it impacts single women. So what these women are facing then, they are criticized for needing services, needing extra monthly income, or needing food stamps, or needing it WIC or help with their food, with formula for their kids and other things. They're criticized for that, but yet they're not given a real opportunity to go to work because they can only get a minimum wage job, which may be $15 an hour, but their daycare is going to cost them $1,000 or more a month.
Right.
So it's impossible. So we can't do both things. If we want to create a vibrant, prosperous, forward-thinking economy, we have to give our populations the tools they need to actually go to work every day and to have a career path. You know, when I was growing up, a lot of women stayed home. Daycare wasn't as big an issue because many women did stay home with their kids, but that's not the way it is today. I hate to break it to people, but it's no longer 1954. I know that may be a surprise to some that we're not there anymore. It's 2025, and we are the richest country in the world. I say we need to invest in our populations. So these are the kind of policies that I want to put forward, because that's how I think we build up and we start breaking the school to prison pipeline. We start breaking the chains of systemic poverty. This is what systemic poverty looks like. It is a system that keeps people down and they are unable to get up. That is why we are seeing this wide disparity in between wealthy people or well-to-do people and our poor, and that gap's getting bigger because they think about it, they can't get up. They can't go there. You know, we ask people, if people need Section 8 housing, great, we give them Section 8 housing if they can find it and if they have it available. But they go buy a car, and that car, they spent $2,000 on that car because they need a car to go to work. Well, that knocks them out of Section 8 housing because now they have an asset. So that doesn't make any sense. So we're saying, so if you have an asset that you need to get to work, which is what we want you to do, right? We say, we want you to go to work. That's what we're doing. But if you buy that asset, you don't get service, then you have too much. You own too much now. And now you don't qualify. I mean, these are structures that we haven't looked at in many, many years, the way structurally we have support and the way that we provide benefits to our population. So we need to look at that structure and say, does that make sense? Wouldn't we want to exclude transportation used to get to work because we want you to get to work? So you see, we're trapping people into poverty. We're trapping them into needing benefits, and then we criticize them for that. And so we make them feel like they're failures. And that's I think that's the wrong approach to building a vibrant society. And I want to change that approach. And I think that's why economics is such an important thing, because these are the levers we need to give people the confidence that they can proceed, that they can provide for their families, and that their children can have good lives, and they can pass this wealth and what they own and what they have acquired onto their children. These are very important components of our society, and things that are forgotten in an environment where it is all about retribution. And trickle-down economics is all about just those little tiny drops, and you're supposed to somehow get that drop. I mean, trickle-down economics has been debunked for decades. Right. I don't even know why we're still talking about it. It has been clearly debunked by all economists that anyone would want to listen to. All the Nobel laureate economists have all said trickle-down economics does not work. And we can see that because we can see that the rich people are getting richer and the poor people are getting poorer. And if nothing else, that's a good sign. And that poverty knows no racial boundaries. It knows no gender boundaries. Poverty is poverty. And we are the richest country in the world. Not one of our children should be living in poverty. I think that's shameful. And I think that's something we should stop, because we want our children, we don't want them growing up already disadvantaged out of the womb. They're disadvantaged right out of the womb. And we need to break that cycle and make sure that the investments we're making are not making investments when they're adults and they can't handle things. We need to make investments when they're children, so that they are growing up knowing they have the confidence and pride and dignity to do the work that they need to do. That to me is very important.
So let me ask you this, and you talk about investments, and this is a segue because I want people to hear your perspective on international relations as we stand right now. We seem to be, as a country, investing a lot externally. And some of those investments do have an impact here at home. But it seems to me, and love to hear your thought on internationally, are we investing too much, and how do we balance that international engagement versus the issues we have at home, like poverty and homelessness and food apartheid and lack of child care and elder care? How do we balance that?
You know, I just don't believe, Dr. Bryant, that they're mutually exclusive, that we are incapable of making investments we need to make abroad and also taking care of our own population. I just don't believe that these are mutually exclusive. I think it's a matter of priorities. You know, when you say investments, I'm not 100% sure, or you may not be thinking of anything in particular. But let's use the war in Ukraine as an example, okay? Let's use that as an example. So Russia invaded Ukraine because they said, hey, this is ours and we're just going to take it back. We used to own this and this is going to be ours and now we are going to take it back. We know that Putin is an empire builder. We know that he wants to recreate Russia. By the way, Russia is a tiny country economically. Tiny. Economically. They're just a tiny portion of what our GDP is, right? But they have a belligerent autocratic leader, and they have a population that is being forced into war. You know, they're emptying their prisons in order to put people on the front lines, their soldiers on the front lines, in order to win this fight. But what we have to remember is that we are the leading democracy in the world. And what does that really mean? What does that really mean to the world? You know, there are people that want us to retreat from the world. There's always been those movements here. I mean, we've had other eras in our time when people did not want us to be part of our national stage. We live in a global society now. We have to be part of that mix. We are the largest, richest, we have the best defense. We are the number one country in so many ways like that. We're not number one socially, that we're not. We have terrible, our school systems are not what they need to be. Our maternal mortality rates, our number of insured, our quality of life does not lead the world. But we lead the world with regards to our ability to provide economic support, especially where it is needed in the world. That is a role we have always played. I believe that is a role we have to play. We do have to balance that, but we have to also learn how to play a longer game. If we allow Ukraine to fall, and it's not just us, it's also our NATO allies that are working on this and investing in this and putting money and arms into this. If we allow Ukraine to fall, the next stop will be Poland. And that may very well put us into a world war. And that is not what we want. We do not want that. We want Ukraine to be able to preserve its democracy, no matter how fragile it is. We have to support democracy, no matter where it is. And those are investments that are well taken, because that creates a rich ally. You know, we can already see as America under Trump retreated from the world stage, who came in? Because remember, when the U.S. retreats, we leave a vacuum. Think about what happens at your work when a leader is out or sick or unexpectedly resigns or is absent, whatever. What happens? There's a vacuum, and somebody's going to come in and fill it. And it may not be the person you want. So what's happening is China's influence and Russia's influence is growing. They are growing. As we retreated from the national stage during the Trump presidency, they leaned in. And these countries that needed assistance and that used to get assistance from the US are now getting assistance from China. And that means they're building loyalty and coalitions with China. So we have to be very careful about talking about moving away from the world stage. I think we're in a very dangerous time in our global politics. And I think the US has to be stronger than ever in order to hold off these forces so that we maintain our position, first of all, as leader of democratic nations in the world, and also show other democracies the way. Because what we don't understand, and I've done a lot of work internationally, I've traveled a lot internationally, professionally, we are seen from outside as the greatest country in the world. This is the way people view us. They view us that way. We don't always realize that because we're in our bubble. But outside the world, and these emerging democracies in places like Africa and South America and Asia, they need us strong because they need to be able to have that guidepost to lead them. And if we retreat, Russia and China are coming in. We just saw a summit just last week that Russia and China gathered up in the BRICS nations, right? Which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and South Africa. Those are the BRICS nations. And we can see that we were not there. America was not there leading that. Russia was there leading that. Do we want a Russian system of government to take over global politics? I don't think so. So that means we have to be able to balance those two things. And I believe we can. We have the money to do it. We just need to figure out where we want to make those investments.
All right. We're going to step away for a quick message, and when we come back, we'll close out with, a quick rundown of your campaign points and how people can support you, but we'll be right back.
Hey there. Are you ready to amplify your voice and embrace your passion? Tune in to Our Black Media Network, where community comes first and every story matters. We're here 24/7, delivering powerful content on everything from financial literacy to the latest in sports and mental health. We are unapologetically real, reflecting the heartbeat of our community with programs that inspire, empower, and drive change. Join us on all major media platforms to celebrate our unique voices and advocate for the change we want to see. With over 50K monthly viewers, our network is your go-to destination for authentic, engaging content. Be a part of the movement. Be a part of the change. Tune in to Our Black Media Network today and let your voice be heard.
All right, we're back, and we have Patti Hewitt, who's running for Congress as the Democratic nominee. And so, Patti, before we close out, give us your quick bullet points of your platform and how people can support you, and we'll close out for today.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank our Black media. I want to thank Julius Hall and Dr. Bryant for having me on today and for all the work that you do in order to improve the lives and improve the information and knowledge of our citizens. So thank you for that. My platform is all about the working families of this district and making sure that our government is making real investments into these working families and into the services that surround them so that they can prosper. I want more of our population to get a bite of that very prosperous apple that is happening all over our district. That is what I am running for. I believe that we need to put the people's voice back into the people's house, and I intend the people to be the lobbyists that I listen to more than any others. So that is what my platform is all about. People can find out more about me on my website, which is Patti, PATTIFOR, Georgia, all spelled out, .com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Patti Hewitt for Congress. Please follow me. We've got tons of events coming up in these next 2 weeks. But more than anything else, let me speak directly to the voters. Please, not only you go out and vote, but bring someone with you. As Dr. Bryant mentioned, these are going to be very close races, and we need every single vote. So please make sure that you lift up your sofa seat cushions, you look in the back of the closet, that you go see the people that you've stopped talking to, but that you can convince on the issues to get to the polls.
All right. Well, Julius, any last words from you, and we'll close out.
That's it for me. Just go vote. Go vote. Go vote down ballot.
Vote.
You ain't got to look. Just go vote. All Democrats, go vote. And it's a lot of work to be done. I look forward to trying to start something new for the next term for all positions. So we just got to get together. It's going to take all of us creating the organization to make these things happen.
That's it.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Well, you all make sure you go vote early. But we will see you all next Saturday. And between now and then, happy homecoming to our Savannah State Tigers. Take care.
Happy homecoming. I like that.